About 3 months ago, I was going through my morning routine of sitting in front of my computer trying to feel alive enough to take a shower when Facebook sent me a surprising email. Brian Davis wants to be your friend on Facebook. Brian Davis? Fuck Brian Davis. Brian Davis hated me in high school and I hated him. If ever there was a definition of the word dick, he was it. Brian was 1 year behind me in high school. Even though there were only 1,800 students, you'd think there would be chances for me not to see or care about the people who annoyed me. It always seemed that I had to deal with Brian in one way or another, though. Brian was about 6 feet tall and was very round. His big, fake, shit-eating smile was only made more noticeable by his dark brown skin, which seemed to have a permanent sheen. Why was he so shiny? His little eyes would look at you, analyze you, then disregard you and pass you by, all in one breath. His mother, Melba, worked in the school's main office as a registrar. She dealt in documentation, report cards, diplomas, that sort of thing. Okay, I'm sorry, but who names their kid Melba? You're basically asking for your kid to grow up, be fat, and work as a registrar at a high school. Names have power, people. I'm just saying, if you don't want your kid to be evil, don't name him Sinestro. That's for all you comic book nerds out there. Timmy. So, don't curse your kid with a stupid name, but I digress. Towards the end of my senior year, student council elections arose. Brian ran for president of a senior class. Through saving a good amount of money and working hard, his class formed together under the direction of an academic sponsor to raise enough money to take their senior trip to Europe. This was a big deal. My senior class went to Disneyland. I don't think the senior class before that even took a trip. To go to Europe was out of this world. So, what should I see when I walked into the main hallway one day as elections drew near, but a big sky blue sign on the wall saying, "The skies of Europe are in your future, and Brian did it. Vote Brian Davis for senior class president." Occasionally, dotted throughout the sky blue field were little white cotton splotches supposed to represent clouds. But I just saw Melba's fat arms flapping with a hot glue gun, adhering to cotton balls because her boy couldn't do it himself. The letters were 10-inch gold, sequined. It was the gaudiest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And it wasn't just one sign. There were up and down every hallway, everywhere you went, similar slogans. Vote Brian because he is taking you to Europe. If you like croissants fresh from France, vote Brian. You will see Big Ben strike 12 in person because of Brian. He probably would have claimed to have built Big Ben if he thought he would have gotten away with it. I mean, what the hell did he do? Sure, he helped sell candy bars or whatever other fundraiser was going on, but it's not like he ordered the tickets and got sponsorships or anything like that. He was making it out like it was his idea and he made it happen, and through the sheer force of his awesome will, he just looked in the mirror one day and decided, "I will take my class to Europe." I don't recall whether or not he won the election, but I'm sure he probably did. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, he's an asshole. Nobody really pays attention to facts when going to the polls, right? Obviously, the gaudy sign in the hallway says Brian Davis pulled off the trip to Europe, so who am I to argue? It's not like I was there. And I just can't look away from that sign. Nobody could. Make my vote for Brian. Brian Davis hated me with a passion, and I loved every minute of it. That's probably a little twisted, I know, but it's not really my place to judge. All I know is that Brian's hatred of me made my day. I didn't really give him any particular reason to hate me, well, except one time. See, I had quit the baseball team in my junior year and tried out debate for a little while. Our school was hosting a weekend-long tournament that basically added up to sacrificing a perfectly awesome 2 days off in favor of really hard logistics and organizing colors by the occasional board game to pass the time. For my part, I read comic books during my break and caught some sleep on the couch or in the lounge between rounds. On one such break, I headed over to the temporary building next door to watch a game of Monopoly. Crowded around the table in the classroom were all my friends. Paul Kirsten, the natural-born politician who conned me into trying debate. Brandon May, a Chinese kid I'd known since kindergarten, who went from hardly speaking English at all to being one of the most articulate and eloquent speakers I knew. Daniel Ta, an arrogant but laid-back guy who thought everything was hilarious. Johnny Rice, whose physical likeness to Kevin Smith earned him the nickname Lunchbox. And Allison Spencer, one of the hottest girls at my school, who was filling in honors community service by slumming with the pseudo-intellectual Geek Squad. There were others in the room, but I don't remember them. Seated at the head of the Monopoly table, of course, was Brian Davis. I could smell his arrogance the second I walked in the door. Brian was already out of his seat and lording over the board. He was the car. Of course he was the car. Everybody wants to be the car. It's single-handedly the coolest figurine in the game. I mean, what do you want to be, the thimble? At the time I walked in, he was pointing at Park Place and yelling at the top of his lungs over protests from Brandon and Paul. I had the hotel there! That's up the ante! You owe me some money! I eased back to observe. Brian's attention was totally on the game. A UFO could have landed right outside, and he'd still been screaming about the 12 Monopoly bucks he was owed because Lunchbox landed on Illinois Avenue. He cared about nothing, least of all me. I eased closer. He flew out of his chair again to defend free parking money he was owed. Paul got into it with him. Daniel smiled. Did he know something was coming? Who knows? I inched closer, my palms beginning to sweat with anticipation, my heart pounding. This was my moment to shine. I'd be king of the moment if I pulled this off. If I didn't, I'd just be another loser, crushed under the might of Brian's arrogant girth. Brian shouted. Allison was defending Paul now. I was a cat prowling closer and closer to my prey. I could see it all before me. Victory would be mine. And on Brian shouted as my hand clenched the chair, waiting for the right moment. He got his way. Paul forked over the free parking money and Brian was satisfied. He carefully organized a stack of pink bills and placed them in their spots in front of him. Taking a deep breath, he fell right into my trap. As he sat down, in a bolt of lightning, I yanked the chair out from under him as hard as I could. Brian, already in full stride to sit, never had a chance. He never heard the chair move. And it was too late to hear the warnings that erupted from the rest of the room. Brian Davis went down. Hard.